Hello, a warm welcome to you in the Ghatna Chakra book video. Let's begin this journey where we will present every topic in a simple, clear, and exam-oriented manner.
You know, when you think about what makes a community truly work, it's not just the buildings or the roads. It's the land itself, the ground we all stand on. It shapes pretty much everything. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the local group that holds the keys to this vital resource.
Seriously, have you ever stopped to think about that? Who actually gets to say, yes, you can build a house here, or nope, that spot is for a community park? It's a huge question, and the answer directly impacts everyone's life. It might just be a group you haven't heard much about, but their power is, well, it's immense.
And here it is, the Land Management Committee. The easiest way to think about them, it's kind of like a superpowered neighborhood association. But instead of just looking after the local playground, they're in charge of all the public land and properties in their area. Their whole job is to manage, supervise, and control these shared community assets.
So how exactly do they do that? How do they use this power? Well, it all really boils down to 6 key functions, and we're going to break them down one by one to see how this committee literally shapes a community from the ground up. All right, first up, let's look at the committee's role as the enabler, the one who opens doors and creates opportunities for people.
Let's make this real for a second. Picture a young family in your community dreaming of building their own home. Or maybe a farmer who needs a small plot of land to grow food. They have the need, but what's the next step? Well, this is exactly where the committee comes in.
They have 3 main tools in their toolbox to make things happen. First, they can actually allot a piece of land to someone specifically to build a house on. Second, they can allocate land for all sorts of other uses, like farming or maybe starting a small shop. And third, they grant the official, legal right for someone to occupy and use that land. The big takeaway here is that these aren't just some rules in a book. These are the practical powers that give people a chance to build a life and help the community grow. Okay, so giving people access to land is a huge part of the job. But that's only half the story, right? Because a community's land is precious and limited. It needs a guardian. And that brings us to the committee's other major role, protecting that shared property.
Because, let's be honest, things can go wrong. What happens when someone damages public property? Or what if somebody just decides to put up a fence around a piece of community land and claim it as their own? This is where the committee has to switch hats and use its enforcement powers.
And we're not talking about just sending a sternly worded letter. Nope, this committee has real teeth. It's legally empowered to step in and take direct, decisive action to protect the community's land.
So what kind of stuff are we talking about? Well, they can go after someone for damaging property, say if a public well gets ruined. They can deal with the misuse of community assets, which is known as embezzlement. And this is a big one. They can tackle encroachment, which is just a formal way of saying they can stop the illegal takeover of public land.
And this, right here, is the perfect way to think about it. It's 2 sides of the same coin. On one hand, the committee is the giver. It empowers people by granting them access to land. But on the other hand, it has to be the guardian, protecting those exact same resources so they're there for everyone, now and in the future. This dual role is what makes them so absolutely crucial.
And to really complete that guardian picture, there are 2 more key powers. They have the power to actually evict people who are illegally occupying land. That's the necessary follow-through, right? And they also have the power to collect land revenue, which helps make sure the community's resources are managed well financially.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Why does any of this actually matter? Well, because what this committee does every single day is a fundamental balancing act that gets right to the very heart of how local communities are governed.
This is really the core of it all. Every single decision they make is a trade-off. It's a negotiation between what one person or one family needs and what's best for the community as a whole. Giving land to a family is great for them, but it also means that land isn't available for something else down the road. It is a constant, delicate, and incredibly important balancing act.
At the end of the day, it really all boils down to a simple truth. The fairness, the wisdom, the care with which a community manages its land, that is a direct reflection of its own health. When the land is managed well for everyone, the entire community thrives.
Which, of course, leaves us with one big, important question to chew on. This committee holds a massive amount of power over people's lives. So the real challenge isn't just understanding what they can do, but figuring out how we, as a community, can make sure that power is always used transparently, responsibly, and fairly for the benefit of all. Definitely something to think about.